finished this last night, literally rolling my eyes like, oh my God.
I listened to audiobooks, so I finished it while I was in Target yesterday. I was like at Target and I was like, Lindsay's obsessed with Target in this book. Savvy's here, and I'm here with Amanda. What is very exciting today, so you guys who normally watch my channel know I've done a lot of anti-MLM videos, but until now I have never done one with someone who actually was formerly in MLM. And I found out my friend Amanda used to work for itWorks, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and it was a terrible experience, as we all expected.
Yes, to say the least.
So to combine like BookTube and anti-MLM tube, we both read the book Boss Up by Lindsay Teague Moreno, which is, she was like at the top of the Young Living pyramid. I think she still is. Honestly, so I'm going to give this book 2 stars.
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't nearly as bad as I was anticipating.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like the last one that I read, where it was just like a giant pitch, but it wasn't really like that.
The one you read, guys, if you haven't, go check out Amanda's channel. I've linked it in the description. She has a video where she reviews a book that's written by, was it the itWorks founder?
Yeah, it was his daughter.
itWorks founder's daughter. Yeah. It sounds so like gross and terrible the whole time.
Yeah. It's just a picture like the worst nightmare you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. So go check out that video if you haven't, because that is just a wild ride. I read this book. I listened to it on Audible while walking Chewy and going to Target. It was better than Girl Stop Apologizing. I'll give it that. Like, it actually was. And I'll talk about the good and the bad. There were some really bad things in this, but there were also like some parts that weren't that bad. And then there were also some parts that would have been good in the context of a regular business book, but knowing that she made her money in a pyramid scheme makes that advice not good anymore, if that makes sense. I guess I want to ask you first, like, because I have some talking points. I have a cool little reading journal that I got, and I made like talking points about what I want to talk about for the book. But I like, because I have never like, I guess, actually interviewed someone about their MLM experience before. I guess I want to talk to you, like, from your experience working with itWorks, what were some of the things that like you noticed in the book as, or like, I guess because like a lot of it is in context, like I wouldn't know to pick up on like, oh, that's a cult thing because like I've never been in an MLM, but like you have. So like what were some of the things that you picked up on in the book?
Well, one of the first things that jumped out at me was there's a line, I think it's in like chapter 3 or 4, where she gives the line, I'm sure everybody could use an extra $500 of income a month. And I was like, that's like a universal. It seems like every MLM uses that exact same line. And then when she was talking about the positivity and deleting all of the negativity, I was like, that seems a little bit like behavior and thought control. To an extent, there was a specific line. It wasn't just the general positivity.
Yeah.
There was a specific line that I was like, that sounds like behavior control. But yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it. And then the whole like momtrepreneur, because I heard that a lot.
Oh yeah, I hated momtrepreneur. Like I like puns, so like I would never fault a mom for being like, I'm a momtrepreneur. Like sometimes I've said I'm a dogtrepreneur because I've business about dogs. So like that's fine, but like I feel like sometimes in an MLM people make the momtrepreneur thing their identity rather than just like a cute pun about it. Instead they're like, no, I am a business mom, and that like it becomes like a weird cult that they almost create.
Yeah, no, really. I mean, it's gotten to the point where you hear momtrepreneur and you automatically think, oh, she must be part of an LLM.
Which is terrible because there are a lot of actual moms that start real businesses, and it's like I would feel bad for them.
Yeah,
because like they just want to do their thing as a mom and start their own business, and they don't deserve to be lumped in with these people.
Exactly.
Oh, that and the term tribe. She used the word tribe so much. I was cringing. I was like, I think we should take, like, if I had been reading this not when I was in the middle of my work day, I would be like, we should take a shot every time she says tribe, because I was like, this is so cringy. Like, like find your tribe, all of that. I'm like, that's no.
She'd say, "Oh, I'd have to hire more people." My first thought would be like, "But did you really hire them?"
Like, I think, did you recruit more people? Maybe.
Right. I wonder what other businesses are, because she talked about like her essential oils business, which, you know what, like there was a point, again, I don't remember what specific chapter this was, I have it highlighted, but there was a point where she was talking about she didn't name Young Living, but she was talking about Young Living, and she was saying, you know, I was really skeptical because this and that, and I was like, but why did you decide to sign up with them then?
Right, yeah.
Especially with all of the controversy that was surrounding their CEO, specifically Gary Young, where he like, didn't he like accidentally kill his baby or something?
Yeah, he was like, he believed, well, I guess like you can do water births, right?
Yes.
I mean, I've never had a child, so this is something I don't know, but I've heard you can do water births, but he held the baby underwater for an hour after the baby was born.
Yeah, so, that's not. I've only seen that kind of water birth one time, and you just hold them down for a few seconds and kind of gradually bring them up.
But the amount of times he's been arrested for practicing medicine without a license, and for like hiring people who also have been arrested for practicing medicine without a license, like, I don't know how there's any credibility for this guy whatsoever. So when she was skeptical, I don't think she ever addressed what convinced her to trust this company.
No.
I think just the fact that she likes essential oils, which is fine, but like you can start your own essential oils business. Like I've gotten comments from people on some of my anti-MLM videos where people are like, I run my actual own essential oils business. Like I like curate the oils myself. I don't buy them from someone else, and I package them myself. Like they're actually my business. So like, why didn't she do that? Like, I feel like if you've done that, you didn't have to buy into someone else's oils.
Exactly. Especially somebody with such a sketchy background, specifically medically speaking, and they use a lot of these essential oils to, like, you know, cure ailments or whatever. I wouldn't trust that. Hell no.
No, not at all. I guess this is a good lead-in to one of the talking points I had, which is, after reading this book, I'm not going to make an accusation because I don't have proof of this, but I got this vibe that made me uncomfortable, that I'm worried Lindsay doesn't vaccinate her kids.
Oh God, I hope so.
I hope she does. Like, I genuinely hope she does, but she made 2 separate comments in the book in 2 different chapters. I even went to Target and got out, because like I listened to it, so I didn't have the text to show. So I went to Target and found the book on the shelf and took a picture of each of those pages so I can edit it into the video. In the first chapter, she has this weird line where she's like, I'm tired of reading social media posts from moms talking about how stupid another mom is for her choices around food, sleep, vaccinations, medicine, school, and so on. It's like, you didn't have to put vaccinations in there. Like, I agree with everything else.
Right.
Moms don't need to judge each other for their decisions on those things, but vaccinations, like, I feel like that's a fair thing to judge on, because if one mom doesn't vaccinate, their kid could pass a disease to the other kid. Like, that makes sense. That actually does affect them.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a little more like specific than, you know, a generalization with like food or, you know, sleep time or whatever.
Exactly.
Because if you don't vaccinate your kids, then at that point you're affecting other kids if you're putting them in public school and putting them in public places and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, like, no judgments. If you don't want to vaccinate, fine. But then don't put your kid, you know, in a public park, let's say, where there's a young baby that can't get vaccinated yet, because then you're making a decision for that parent. Anyway, reading the introduction where she's talking about like the plane and the shaking, I was like, you know, if I didn't know that she was like in Young Living and in an MLM, she might actually make a pretty decent fiction writer, because I was there with her.
Yeah, honestly, that was, so I gave it 2 stars. And those 2 stars, 1 star was for the fact that I thought she was a good writer. Like, I was like, she has a good grasp of the language. She has, like, she's good at like creating a scene and having a strong voice and connecting to a reader. And then the other star was because in the right context, some of the business advice was actually accurate. So that's why I gave it 2 stars. Like, it wasn't like Girl Stop Apologizing, where I was like, this book is highly offensive to me as a human, except for the MLM parts. But I gave it 2 stars. But yeah, she's a good writer. I was like, you're not bad. You're doing a good job at this.
Yeah, I really dug her voice. Like, I dug her voice in those parts. Yeah, and then she would say, like, you know, little things about her husband that, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just didn't get the humor. Maybe the humor just went over my head. I know I messaged you at one point with something from the book.
Yeah, okay, her sarcasm does not always come through, because there was this part where I was talking about where she talks about how she started a scrapbooking business, which I wish she talked more about the non-MLM businesses, because her other businesses actually sounded pretty cool. Like, she had a scrapbooking business, and she was like, I know you're all thinking, how did I deal with so much competition? Because obviously every 25-year-old is spending their weekend scrapbooking. And I was like waiting for her to tell me how she bested all the competition, but then she was just like, yeah, I know, my hobbies are weird, and then continued on. And I was like, oh wait, were you being sarcastic about that?
Yeah.
Because I was like,
yeah,
right now
everyone
is like bullet journaling, and so I was like, that is pretty common. I don't know.
Maybe she was ahead of her time with that one. Who knows?
I don't know. I guess she made over $1 million in Young Living, but that's because she has a 400,000 member downline. So she would say something good, and then I would keep having to remember, like, you recruited 400,000 people into a scam. People who do cult stuff are so, you can follow them so easily because they are generally nice people, and they're convincing, and they have a good personality, and like, that's how I felt with her. But then I'd be like, oh wait,
am I starting to like her? No.
Yeah, there are things I like about her. Yeah. At the same time, I kept having to contextualize every piece of business advice she gave into the world of MLM where she was using it. So like when she would talk about like social media or whatever, and like cutting out people on social media who are negative towards you.
My first thought with that was, what if it's a relative?
I don't know if you saw the video where I reacted to her Young Living keynote speech.
Yes.
Yeah, so she talks about that. She's like talking about like at Thanksgiving, if your aunt keeps telling, like going, oh, you're still doing that, then like maybe you need to stop interacting for a while or whatever. And I was like, like, no, that's the cult shit. Like, you don't, anyone who, like, you can't cut out your friends and family if they don't believe in your business. Did itWorks ever try to get you to cut people out?
There was one time where I had been talking to a really old friend of mine, not the one who recruited me, a different friend. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to get her to sign up, and I was talking to my upline at the same time, because I was talking to my friend and then sending screenshots to my upline so that she could read the conversation and like kind of coach me on what to say next. And a couple of days went by after we kind of ended the conversation. Nothing ever came of it. And then a couple of days went by. She messaged me again and she said, listen, I really don't want you to contact me anymore about this, because now I'm starting to feel like that's all our friendship is. So I was like, okay. And I really didn't know what to say because, you know, this is a friend I've known for years. I met her when I had my first job when I was 19, and I've, you know, been friends with her ever since. So I messaged my upline and I told her what happened, and she was like, well, you know, I mean, if she's not going to support you, this is part of your life now. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. But I never did that. Of course I never did that.
That's so creepy.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, they're not going to support you. Like, not everyone's going to support every decision you make.
I mean, but that's the thing about MLMs. And that was one of the things that I noticed early on, was that my upline had an answer for everything.
Because it's all scripted. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she literally everything she had. And that's the thing. They're very charismatic. They're generally very warm. They make you feel, you know, very loved and very welcomed and, you know, very friendly and all that.
Yeah.
And that's the dangers of it. That's where like the cult mentality kind of seeps in, because at that point you're seeing this person as someone who has been so genuinely nice to you that when they ask you to do something or tell you that you should do this, that, or the other, then you're going to be like, okay, well, they obviously have my best intentions in mind, so I'm just going to do it.
So, friends, MLMs can be sort of like cults. They're not always cults, but they use a lot of the same language.
Tactics, yeah. They use a lot of the same,
same strategies to keep you involved.
Yeah. Take a look at the bite model. Actually, I'll send you a link to that article that I read when I did my itWorks video that talked about the MLM version of the bite model.
Oh yeah, okay, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. I'll send that over to you and you can link it in the description. It's a really good article and super interesting and also kind of
Yeah.
scary. So one thing that it didn't necessarily rub me the wrong way, but it seemed a little bit out of place for me was the amount of time that she spent talking about being a mom.
It was way too much. I will just say that, like, there's nothing wrong with being a mom is great. You're a mom, right? Yeah. Yeah, you're a mom. Being a mom's great. My mom's obviously a mom. She's great.
Yeah, but the first 3 chapters, I was like, that's a little bit too much. Like by chapter 3, I want you to get to the promise of the premise, which is how to boss up. Like,
right? I felt very lied to because the book specifically said, this is not your typical fluff heavy women's business book. This is real business advice. And I was like, then why are you going on about being a mom forever? Like, I'm going to be real. Business books written by men don't go on about being a dad for that long. And it's not because being a dad isn't a huge part of their life. It's because that's not what the book's about. Exactly. And I feel like it's because she's trying to appeal to a very specific audience, which is MLM people who are often recruited into it because, I assume, I've never been a mom, but I know that a lot of people get recruited into MLMs as new moms because, maternity leave is not very good in terms of pay. And like, you're looking for some way to earn some extra money while you're not able to physically enter the workforce recovering from a pregnancy. Like there's all these barriers set up and then they capitalize on that. That's at least how it comes across to me.
For sure. No, for sure. I was even, when I was pregnant, I used to work at a restaurant. I was a hostess and a woman came in with her dad. That nothing ever came of that, but I can tell that story quickly if you want. But she came in with her dad and she was in an MLM. Of course, I didn't know it at the time, but she said, "Hey, what are you going to do after your baby is born?" Mm-hmm. So they do that. They target women, first-time moms, new moms, especially if they have more kids or if it's their first kid. Like if they have more than 2 kids or if it's their first kid, that's like ripe right there. That's
so true. Okay, because I feel like when I reacted to Rachel Hollis's Arbonne speech, like there's a part in there where she's like, how many of you guys are pregnant for the first time right now? And like half the audience cheered in that like huge room. It was like thousands of people. And then when I did a video reacting to anti-MLM subreddit. Mm-hmm. And one of the posts that someone had put up was like a worksheet because someone agreed to like host a party for someone else and they sent them a worksheet that was like, here's how to find 80 more people to invite to the party. And some of the categories were like, one category was like pregnant women. One category was like new moms. One category, like there were multiple categories that were like specifically targeting moms and expecting moms. Well, the whole first chapter of the book was useless. Like, maybe, and that's the thing is like, I have mixed feelings on this because part of me is like, would it be useful if I'm a mom? Probably not. I feel like there's this trend in business books targeted at women that make the assumption that by default, all women are afraid to start a business. That we're like all, and even if it's other women writing it, and like, I feel like Rachel Hollis does the same thing. Even Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, I read her book, Lean In, and she did the same thing where a lot of the book was constantly just talking about like how to overcome your fears as a woman of being powerful in the workspace. I was like, I never had this fear. Like, I don't know if this just makes me like oblivious to my surroundings, but I've never had it. So like that advice is useless to me.
Yeah. That might have been like relevant advice in the 70s when the women's movement was just coming about. Even in like the 80s where it was still relatively new, but we're in 2020.
Yeah, so I kind of give Sheryl Sandberg a pass on that because she's like in her 40s, I would say. So she like, even though like women were in the workforce at that time, there still was a lot more sexism in the workplace when she was getting started. So I get it, but I feel like in this book, I don't know how old Lindsay is, but I feel like she's closer to our age. She's
Yeah,
like,
I think so too.
she has 3 young kids. I think she graduated from college in the first decade of the 2000s. So she's
Okay, yeah. So
probably
she's
like the
probably
same
about
age
my
as
age.
Rachel Hollis, actually like mid-30s. I
For
have
sure.
notes on this. This is what I get so mad about is it's all the like, I won't say girl boss type books because I did read a book called Girl Boss by Sophia Amoruso and this book didn't do that. So I won't say girl boss books because that one was fine. But I guess like the boss babe type books, the books about being a mom boss or whatever, they all like they spend like chapters talking about like how to overcome your fear of being powerful as a woman, or like how to overcome your guilt over putting yourself before others.
Even if you don't, like, even if that's not your inclination, like, one thing I've learned in therapy, yes, I'm in therapy, don't ask.
No, it's all good. I spent like a year in therapy. I think it's very useful.
It is, it's very useful.
Yeah.
And it's really great to be able to talk to somebody. Anyway, but yeah, one thing that you learn in therapy is self-care is so important. Like, you can't try to take care of other people unless you're taking care of yourself, because
That's true. Yeah.
you're not going to be able to do it, or as effectively. You're not going to be able to do it as effectively.
And I think that's the point she's making, but I feel like a lot of it, the fact that she spends so much time on it kind of relies on the assumption that women don't already know that.
Right.
And it's like, maybe some don't, I don't know, but like, none of this applies to me. Like, I get a book under the pretense that it's going to give me sales tactic advice, it's going to give me business marketing advice, and a lot of the advice is just completely like irrelevant to me.
At that point, you've already paid for the book, so she's already got your money. And it's like,
exactly, I feel like I was misled. I feel this all the time, and that's partially like why I'm trying to write my own business self-help book now, because I'm like, I feel misled by so many of these books that I feel like they're going on for so long. Like, her whole first chapter is just, what does it mean to be the right kind of mom? How can moms stop judging each other? I'm like, that is irrelevant from your business. Like, I know maybe to you it's not, because to you, overcoming those hurdles was a huge part of your success. But like,
but that's not, I feel like that's not something that you put in a book like this, where the title is Boss Up for female entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
You put that in a book for, a different book that's maybe about mothers who are entrepreneurs.
Right. Like, I feel like there should be a book that should be like, Momtrepreneur. Like, why doesn't she write a book called Momtrepreneur and then do that there? Because I feel like the book was being marketed as a book for all women in business, when in reality, it's mostly focuses on moms, which happen like, and I know like being a parent is the norm, but still, like, that's a lot of people who start a business have already overcome the mental hurdles and are now just looking for new strategies and new ways to innovate. They don't need to be told, don't forget to innovate. Like, that's useless advice. Yeah.
Exactly. And besides, I feel like that advice that she was giving, it's a little dated. We're in 2020. This one was interesting. I want to see what year she
What year was it published? I feel like within the last 2 years.
2019.
Okay, so it was published like a couple months ago. Oh my God. Yeah. No, the advice, well, yeah.
It is Christian literature too, which is also misleading. Yeah.
Okay, all Rachel Hollis books are published under Christian literature too. I think it's a way to, because the Christian literature market is much smaller, so I think it's a way to like rise the ranks easier. That's my guess. I'm not accusing them of anything, but like the general self-help genre is huge. Where like Christian literature is so much smaller that like, oh, this is the top selling book in its genre, that kind of thing. I mean, it talks about God, but like, it's really not a religious book at all.
No, it's not. I was just gonna say that there's not really any dwelling on religion at all. She did, like you said, mention God a few times. Yeah, that $500 a month line, that was right in chapter 1, bro.
Did it have that in the itWorks book you read too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when my friend, the one who recruited me, texted me, that was one of the first things she said was, "Oh my gosh, it's just so great. I knew I could use an extra $500 a month." And that was in our scripts. Who don't you know that could use an extra $500 a month?
That's so weird, especially because the whole thing with MLMs is like, there's no fixed amount of income you're going to earn.
I think, well, this is specific to itWorks. I don't know about other MLM companies, how their ranks are structured, but $500 a month is about the amount that you get as a ruby, which is the 3rd level up.
Oh, okay.
And if I'm remembering correctly, the top level before Black Diamond, like I think it's Ambassador Diamond is like the top level. You need at least 1 ruby.
I'm visualizing all of these as like Steven Universe characters.
It'll blow your mind if you saw like a chart, like an itWorks Ambassador Diamond chart. It would be so confusing because you have like executives, you have rubies, you have this and that, and like you need this many, and they need this many, and they need this many. So not only do you have to maintain your rank, but you have to make sure that all of your downline maintains their rank. It's exhausting.
That is exhausting.
Exhausting. To even just think about it's exhausting.
And like the whole idea that like in order to have that rank, you have to have a downline. You would think that if the company is wanting to claim like we're not a pyramid scheme, you would think that the recruitment would be strictly optional, that like you could still rise in the company just by selling.
Just by selling, yeah.
Just by selling direct to consumer. And I think isn't that why AdvoCare, they got fined $150 million recently because it was found that like their people were making a lot more by recruitment than by selling. And like all the Facebook posts from AdvoCare people were like how they were so heartbroken that they were going to be losing their downline because the company switched to a structure where you can't recruit now. You can only sell direct to consumer. You can't recruit anymore, which is a much better model.
Absolutely.
But all of the people who were in it are like talking about how losing their downline that they worked so hard for is going to take such a huge hit to their family's income. And I'm just here thinking like, if you're going to lose so much income by not having people below you, you're still able to sell the product. So like, if you were making that much more from other people's commission than from selling your own product, like that should have been a clue to you that this is a pyramid scheme.
Especially if you've never been approached by an MLM or you don't, now it's different because now you have like the MLM subreddit. You have people like, like YouTubers that speak out about this kind of behavior. So people are a little more aware. But back when I joined itWorks, which was 2015, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
I had never even heard of what an MLM was. So like I wasn't expecting it. So it was very easy to fall into it.
I feel like the anti-MLM movement has really only like taken off within the past 2 to 3 years.
With itWorks is what I saw, the people, like you can't rank up just by selling.
Yeah, that's what's so creepy about it. Like that you should be able to rank up by selling if the company was a direct sales company and not a pyramid scheme.
Exactly.
Some of her advice, like when she talked about the way that she sales pitches, I appreciated that she gave specific advice, that she talked about like how she structures a sales pitch. I think that's useful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like that she made it a point, it seemed, to point out that most of the people in her essential oils business were doing it a certain way that she didn't find ethical. So she did it another way. And I appreciated that.
I did too, but I wish she went into more detail about what specifically that was. She was like, people got so mad at me because I was doing it a different way. And I was like, okay, but what was it? All she mentioned was that she used social media. But I was like, but like how? How did you use social media?
Yeah.
Because she talks about how she doesn't like to mass cold message people because she finds it creepy, which again, I appreciated. But I'm like, okay, what on social media did you do then? What were your strategies? Did you pay for Facebook ads? Did you like find something in the algorithm to boost yourself? Like, what did you do? And I think she didn't really go into enough detail about that for it to be of any use. Like, I feel like there's often a jump where where business books, I feel like they just skip over a huge part where it's like the first half of the book is going to be about coming up with what your purpose is as a business owner and coming up with ways to overcome your fear, coming up with ways to actually start the thing. Like it's all so beginner level. And then it immediately jumps to the super advanced stuff. Like, how do you manage your employees? How do you deal with these weird inner work conflicts? It's like, okay, but you skipped over the whole thing of like, how did you raise the money to start the business? How did you find employees? How did you find clients? What methods did you use for that? It skips over from like, you're just floating in this abyss of not having a business to suddenly like you have a business with multiple clients and multiple employees. It's like, okay, but the stuff in between is the hardest for a business owner. And I feel like a lot of books gloss over it. And I don't know if that's because they want us to buy their business coaching, or I don't know why, but they just gloss right over it. And it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
And I think because part of it might be that it's also specific to every industry. But at the very least, like, tell me what you did, because I can at least find some, like, in the book I'm writing, I talk about how I used crowdfunding, and I talk about my best tips for a successful crowdfunding campaign, because, like, a lot of people, a barrier to starting a business is not having the money to buy the initial supplies and the initial inventory and that kind of thing. So I talk about how I raised that money and what advice I'd give you if you want to try that kind of tactic for raising money, and also some, like, because I think that's useful. I feel like overall of that is just, it's just such a letdown.
Absolutely. No. And I mean, like you said, a lot of business advice might be very specific to whatever business you have, but I think there is a way to generalize some of that advice so that it can apply to multiple types of businesses. Like when I was reading this book and like I was trying to take stuff away too, but more so as like an author who's self-publishing. So I was like, okay, you know, what can I take away from this that might help?
One thing I was wondering was, I don't know if this was a red flag to you, because I haven't been in an MLM, but from your perspective, did it like set you off at all the way that she frequently equated being an entrepreneur with working from home?
Yes.
That bothered me, because I was like, one, I feel like you're excluding all the women who want to start a restaurant, all the women who want to start a brick and mortar store, all the women who maybe they're going to start some kind of home repair or construction business and go on site. Like, a lot of some entrepreneurship can be done from home. Like,
or maybe they just want to
graphic design, video editing, that kind of thing. But like, a lot of businesses you start also are not from home. So the fact that you kept saying working from home and like basically use the terms owning a business and working from home interchangeably, was that like a red flag to you?
Yes, it was. Yeah, because not, like you just said, not everyone who wants to start a small business wants to stay at home. Some people even just want to rent an office to be able to have their own space away from their
like
house.
co-working spaces and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So that was a little bit of a red flag for me.
Because I feel like MLMs use that to be like, do you want to work from home and all of that?
Yeah. Do you want to work in your PJs? Do you want to be able to work on your phone while you're watching your toddler? Yeah, that was always a huge sales or pitch. And that, I mean, again, that goes into them targeting moms and then targeting stay-at-home wives who maybe don't feel fulfilled being just, you know, a stay-at-home wife. And I don't mean to like say that like condescendingly, because there's nothing wrong with just wanting to be a stay-at-home wife and having that fulfill you, and that's it, you're happy. There's literally nothing wrong with that at all.
I think that was a good point that she made too. That was like one of the things I gave her credit for, was in the first chapter when she talks about like her sister-in-law loves being a stay-at-home mom and loves having being a mom be her like full-time thing. That's what she cares most about, is you know, raising other people. Great. Like, she was like, that's awesome for her. It wasn't what my interest was. And I'm like, I think that's a good way to approach it, that like every human is going to have different goals in life. Yeah. And that's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's important too, to not bolster one kind of person by subtly belittling or subtly dismissing another group. So I appreciated that.
Yeah. So like, I thought that was pretty good. But again, that could have been like 2 sentences in another chapter. She didn't need a whole chapter on like being a mom.
No,
she even said like, even if you don't have kids, even if you're a man, this book still applies to you. I'm like, no, it doesn't. You talk about being a mom so much that like, I think over half of this book was useless to me as someone who's not a mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because she talked about it a lot. And a lot of times it was basically the same thing that she was saying. She was just saying it a different way.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, I got it the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Move on.
The other big part, so I said earlier that I'm afraid Lindsay doesn't vaccinate her kids. At first, when she said that, I was like, okay, maybe she's thinking of it the other way around. Like, maybe she's like, I vaccinated my kids and anti-vax people judge me for it. Yeah. So I was like giving her the benefit of the doubt. But then in the chapter, Put on Your Positive Pants, she's talking about positivity in marketing. Right, and how like positivity is so much better than like whatever. Maybe that is good advertising advice. I don't know. My ads are generally pretty positive because it's cute dogs. But then she has this paragraph right here. I'm gonna read it because this just like when I heard this, I was like, shit, this woman doesn't vaccinate. It was like, there's a television commercial targeting mothers that starts with a shot of a woman looking sullen and filled with shame. She holds up cards with her story of tragedy on them and lets them fall to the floor as sad music plays. She begins to weep about how basically she let her daughter down and damaged her body by not getting the correct vaccine for her. She was the mom and she could have prevented the tragedy but didn't. Then she gets up from the table to reveal her teenage daughter wearing a sports uniform, looking as sad as humanly possible and revealing a prosthetic leg. Mother and daughter walk out of the house as if they're disappointed that they have to go on living like this. If only the mother had been better at protecting her child. And then she ends that description by saying, insert eye roll here.
Yeah.
And then she goes on about how like she found that to be emotionally manipulative. So she was like, that company was just trying to use emotional manipulation to make a quick buck. So I would never buy their product. And I was like, you would never buy what product? Vaccines? Like, what? They sound like they're advertising vaccines. It sounds like a PSA. This doesn't even sound like a corporate advertisement. And you're like, I would never support this company. I was like, really? So I was getting a little concerned on that. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm not a mom, but I am going to judge you if you didn't vaccinate your kids. Because I regularly, like, thank my mom for vaccinating me.
I just got to a highlighted line.
Yeah.
It is my fault still that although I'm a multi-million-dollar producing business owner, weird flex, but okay, speaker, podcast, and educator, lots of people still don't know who I am and why they should take advice from me. And my note was, I still don't know who you are, nor why I should take advice from you, to be honest.
That's so true. I feel like that's also, okay, I want to talk about what I call business guru magnetic poetry. The idea that there's just like a box full of words that business gurus pull from. Because like I did accuse Rachel Hollis of plagiarism in the past, but like I almost feel bad calling it plagiarism now because I feel like it's not just her. I think they all just pull from the same well of words. So like when she's doing those humble brags, like Rachel Hollis does the same humble brags where she's like, guys, I get so many messages every day from people being like, how can I do this or whatever? And you know what I'm good at is all of these things. And she'll list like a page long list of all the things she's good at or whatever. So like I feel like the bragging is such a thing.
Yeah.
And she had all these lines that I feel like were also in Girl Stop Apologizing. That was like, be unapologetically yourself. She said like 20 times. She said, stop apologizing over and over again, which I'm like, I mean, Rachel Hollis wrote a whole book about that. So like, I guess you guys are from the same well. And then Lindsay had this whole chapter about like, how to get out of your own way. Stop being in your own way. Get out of your own way. And I'm like, okay, but Rachel Hollis's husband, Dave, has a book called Get Out of Your Own Way coming out in like 2 months. I'm like, you guys,
there was
none of you are original. Like, all shit. Like, maybe it's not plagiarism, but at the very least, it's like completely unoriginal. Nothing anyone says is new in these books anymore.
Yeah. And it's a shame too, because I almost would have been more interested in hearing kind of her story and not the pitchy version of her story, just her story. I had this, idea and I was really passionate about it. So this is what I did. This is how I did it. Like you were saying, the in-between stuff that we don't see. I would have been interested in that.
Doesn't want to say that she built a downline because that's how she made over $1 million is that she recruited 400,000 people. I
wonder how her feels about some of the advice she's shelling out in here. Like, well, she gave me the same advice and I'm not making $1 million yet.
Yeah.
Did you do any of the exercises? There were quite a few. I didn't do any of them, but there were quite a few.
Like in my head, because I was listening to it audiobook wise. And she kept saying, like, I recommend you buy the physical book as well. And I'm like, no, I spent my Audible credit on you. I'm not going to buy your physical book too. Calm down.
This was another red flag for me. It's from chapter 7. I wanted to reach young moms between the ages of 25 and 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because I feel like reading that from a business owner perspective versus reading it from an ex-MLM perspective is very different. So like that was one of the things that I had to contextualize, because I'm like, reading that in the sense of business advice, I'm like, yeah, you really do need to define a narrow target market and focus all your advertisement and all of your kind of thing on them. But then looking at it from an MLM perspective, it's like, oh, you're targeting a group that's vulnerable in terms of their employment status.
Yeah, yeah. And then she goes on to say a couple of sentences later that I can't find it right now. Oh, no, there it is. My business was born out of a vision to bring essential oils to a younger market than was currently being catered to. So that rubbed me a little bit wrong. And like you said, if it had been a different business, if it hadn't been essential oils, it probably wouldn't have fazed me at all.
Even if it was essential oils and it was like her own essential oils company, like if she started her own essential oils and was like, I wanted to bring them to a younger audience, like,
yes, that would
great.
be different.
I think, like I said, like I want to bring books about social issues to a younger audience, right? When I write books about dogs, I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk about a social issue through a dog's perspective. I want to bring that to a young audience.
Absolutely.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. But when you're saying I want to bring something to a younger audience and it's rooted in a business model that's inherently manipulative, that's when the problem comes up.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because I mean, 25 to 40, I think that's a pretty general age range right there. That's about, majority. That's the majority of consumers, I would say, is between that age range. This is also from chapter 7. When she was talking about like posting like photos, posting on like Instagram and Facebook, where she says, take the time to get yourself a subscription to a really great stock photo library, or learn how to take eye-catching images of your product and your life for your customers to see. That second one is, I would say pretty regular, solid advice, but get yourself a great subscription to a really great stock photo library. Like that almost, I wrote the subscription to a stock photo library advice. It to me seems fishy.
Oh, really? That wasn't a problem to me, because I mean, I use Canva stock images for book advertisements that I make.
Oh, fair enough.
Like, I didn't really have a problem with that, but no, I'm interested in your like perspective on what was suspicious about that.
Well, I guess because of the fact that she was in essential oils, or is, I don't know if she still is. But I guess that was what was sticking in my mind. So when she said that, I was like, wait, she's saying to be authentic and be authentically yourself and not be afraid of that authenticity. But then a little bit later, she's saying that you should get stock image photos, which are highly professional. They're gorgeous most of the time.
Yeah.
So is that really the same thing? But now hearing from your perspective, that makes sense from like a business perspective. I guess it's because I tried to keep in the forefront that she was from an MLM, so I kept kind of expecting the MLM spiel. Which never came. I was pleasantly surprised with that.
She never does the MLM spiel, which is nice.
No, it never came. There were a couple of times that I thought she was going to start getting into it, but she never did. And I appreciated that very much.
Yeah. And I think like hearing your different perspective on the stock photo thing, it makes me feel like maybe she should have given more background on it, because I feel like different, like people from different backgrounds who have different levels of business experience are going to bring different knowledge to the table. So like when I hear get a good stock photo subscription, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Cause like I subscribe to BookBrush and to Canva because I want to make tons of different, but like I also use pictures of my own products and overlay them in those images.
Right. So it's not just the image that you're taking from stock to post. Yeah.
Right. So that's part of it. But then also it's like that might be confusing to someone who has never made graphics or advertisements before, to be like, wait, am I supposed to just pretend these photos are of my product then, or what? Like, if you don't know how to use stock photos in a good way, that might be. So yeah, maybe she should have elaborated on that more. I think maybe that was like because that's the problem. There's a lot of underdeveloped points that could be actually like legitimately good advice. Yeah. And then there's overdeveloped points about things about, motherhood, about things about like more like psychological things, like overcoming your fears and like things like that. Those are like, like she talks too much about that, but then not enough about some of these things that like learning how to use stock photos in an authentic and ethical way. Like that's something that a lot of business owners or aspiring business owners could find use out of.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
like, I wonder, like, she really didn't go into it enough. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, she could have cleared it up just with an example. I think would have been enough if she
Yeah,
really
like
didn't
one
want to get
example,
into
like
it.
for example, I take pictures of my essential oil bottles. I crop out the background using this tool. I go and get a stock photo here. I overlay it and put text like this. Like,
Yeah,
don't have to give me a full graphic design lesson, but just like a
Right.
quick overview of how you did it would have been nice, like one
Exactly.
paragraph even.
Exactly. Because I mean, if I were a person starting a small business and I were looking to, you know, this book to kind of guide me, I would have literally taken that as you just take stock photos and post them, you know, and maybe you put some text on
Right.
there.
He doesn't go into any detail about how to make stock photos work along with your product. Because I'll like take a picture of one of my books or one of my stuffed animals and that kind of thing. And maybe I'll get a stock photo that's like just a background of like a paw print pattern or something.
Right.
Put it in a stock photo that's like, I don't know, or a stock graphic or something that goes along with it. And then I'll do text and that kind of thing.
Right.
But like, yeah, if you hear that and you're like, oh, okay, so I'll just Google pretty flowers.
Yeah.
And then I'll just put flowers on social media and be like, essential oils are great. Like, that's not going to do anything.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I have in the case for empathy.
Yeah.
I have to admit though that empathy is a learned skill for me. I didn't come pre-programmed with a lot of empathy for the feelings of others, and I have a lot of my hard edge, get it done and don't make excuses attitude to blame for that. And I that's no excuse for not having empathy. And it's not, because I know plenty of go-getters that don't make excuse. I'm the same way. I learned, and that was a discipline that I learned in the marching band, but it has nothing to do with my empathy.
Oh my God, I was in marching band too. Are we marching band friends too? Yeah, I love it.
Yes, I played trombone. What'd you play? Trombone.
Saxophone.
Saxophone?
Yeah.
Nice. Alto, tenor?
Alto.
Nice.
What did you say you played?
Trombone.
Trombone, that's awesome. I love it. I have a lot of friends who played trombone.
Yeah, I was like the only girl for the first year, and then my sophomore year, another freshman girl came in, so we were the only two girls of my whole 4 years.
That's awesome. I did through high school and through college. I was 8 years of marching band.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's so cool.
But yeah, I was thinking, well, because I didn't feel like I truly understood empathy until I was maybe like 23 or so. I think it's one of those things that like your brain develops, as like the psychologists say, like your brain doesn't finish developing until you're 26 or something like that.
Like 25
I think empathy is like a thing that, like she says, it's a learned skill, and I agree with that. I think that like over time you develop a sense of empathy, but like kids have no sense of empathy. A lot of times teenagers have no sense of empathy. It takes a while for the idea to envision how someone else is feeling and internalize that to develop in a person. So
for sure.
Yeah. But I think that there is a way definitely to balance being empathetic while also having like a very ambitious approach.